This is the EVP Podcast. You heard it right. It is the EVP Podcast. And we are your hosts. I'm Ghosty.
And I'm Beaker.
And we're back with another episode for y'all's ears.
Yay.
Or eyes.
Your ear
and
holes.
Or eyes.
Eye holes and ear holes.
I saw you made a ham.
Did I?
I saw you made a ham.
Yeah, like 4 hours ago.
Right.
Wait, what time is it? Yeah, about 4 hours ago.
It did look delicious.
It was amazing.
I hope you enjoyed every bite of it.
Every bite that I've had so far, yes. Because it was a big ass 8-pound spiral ham. I did not eat all that in one sitting. I found a new glaze recipe that I think is going to be my go-to.
Oh, yeah. I heard of it, and it did sound quite delicious.
Apple jelly and a raspberry chipotle barbecue sauce.
I am kind of jelly that you didn't bring me a bite.
Yeah, because I don't like you that much.
Son of a bitch.
Whoa. I thought about it, but I didn't.
It's okay. It's just going to give me gout.
Yeah, me too.
We
want to thank Tanil for coming on last week.
Yeah, thanks to Neil. That reference about the ham was due to the reading that you gave to us, and that was for Beaker's reading he had, where his dad wanted him to make a ham and enjoy every bite.
So I did.
Yeah, that ham was for you, Terry.
Yes.
Anything else from last week? Any other comments or things from the episode or any other spooky stuff that came out?
I think your brother said he teared up a little bit.
I was getting kind of choked up from where I was sitting.
It was very emotional.
It did have an emotional time in there, but yeah, thanks to Neil for coming on. That was awesome. This week we're gonna talk about UFOs, man.
Oh, fake stuff. Got it.
Yeah, crop circles, man.
We're talking about bullshit. I mean, crop circles.
Well, actually, you know what? I got a viewer UFO story I can tell real quick.
Do it.
This happened over here in Magna. And they were kind of out at their home, and their home kind of sits the furthest west in Magna, so pretty much just fields and mountains from that point. And this friend said that they had seen something in the sky that was like a box. It wasn't like your flying saucer or anything. It was like a big cube. It was like a cube.
Oh, the Borg have arrived.
And
they're going to.
They said it had just slowly just started going down. It had lights, and it said there was lights along the side of it, and they could see the lights, and it was just kind of hovering, and then it had floated over in the hill areas where you can't access it, and then just slowly went down. They said it had just sat down in the fields there, and then they said it took off, and it was just like it disappeared when it took off. And what's funny is I know that sensation, and it burns in your eyes. It was like a streak when I saw mine. But yeah, they said it was just like all of a sudden just gone. But it was
interesting.
But yeah, that was a local one here in Utah, Magna. And that was just recently. So this kind of goes along with crop circles.
Crop circles.
And what we know about crop circles. What do you know about crop circles?
They're fake as shit.
But what do you know about crop circles? Not anything about real or fake, but what do you know about crop circles?
Oh, they're in the crops in their circles.
And
they're the big ass like symbols out in the middle of fields, and they've been found around the world, mainly in southern England, if I remember correctly.
There's a ton in southern England, yes.
But that's like the epicenter, apparently. But they're found all over the world, and they're just these random ass like symbols that nobody knows what the hell they mean.
Right, and they usually end up being in like formations of like circles, stars, pictograms. Then there's more elaborate ones that get into like fractals and more math equations. Like it gets pretty deep with some of these crop circles.
Yeah, it does.
They usually have like repeating patterns, and they usually happen during the night when nobody can see them happening. And for some reason, a lot of people, whenever they report them, there's usually lights associated with them, whether it's like a flash of light or light orbs that are like flying around the area, or just like intense bright light coming from the area. But
I don't know. I've seen Resident Alien. They just run around the field. There's no lights.
But reports of crop circles go all the way back to the 9th century.
1609, I think.
No, even further than
Even
that.
further back.
The 9th century.
1608, my bad.
So Abigard, the Bishop of Lyon in France, he wrote about people who were accused of Satan worshiping, witchcraft, because what they were doing were they were collecting seeds from these crop circles, and they were using those seeds in fertility rituals, and they were only picking those seeds for a certain reason because the crops, for some reason, they knew something about those fields, and that these seeds had certain things to them that would cause these plants to grow stronger, faster, have more proteins, but they were accused of witchcraft and worshiping the devil because they were using these seeds in the rituals.
Those gosh darn pagans.
Then in 1686, Robert Plot, who was a Oxford professor, he wrote about crop circles that appeared near his home, and with those he saw a flash of light, and he wrote about that's how they were formed, were these flashes of lights, and that animals would not go near those crop circles after they were formed. And then around the same time, there was a pamphlet that was made called The Mowing Devil. And in that, it talks about a farmer who had woken up to a bright light in his field, that the light was so bright that he thought he had a field fire, that he had to go extinguish a fire. When he ran out to go see what was happening, he saw a circle there, a crop circle. He said a devil had to have been the one to have done it because it was too neatly done for any mortal to have done. It was done in such a way where nobody could have touched that to make that happen. It was only the devil could have done that.
Yes.
And then another report, John Leland, who served as a librarian to Henry VIII, he wrote about patterns appearing in the grasses that would happen overnight. And then in 1937, a British science journal reported circles in a field and possibly took the very first picture of a crop circle.
And what year?
1937.
Okay.
And then in 1952, there's reports, and this is in, you can look this up, that in 1952, the U.S. Air Force were investigating crop circles that were happening in Kansas. They didn't know much about these at the time, and they were starting to look into them. 1952. And then in 1963, Sir Patrick Moore, who was a writer for the New Scientist journal, he was investigating crop circles in Charleston and was documenting them into this these journals he was doing. And so in 1963, there was a lot more looking into these crop circle events and what was happening with that. And then in 1966, George Pedley was his name. He was working on his farm, and he heard a loud buzzing sound, and it was coming over this swampy area in his property. So he got off his tractor to take a look at what was going on. He walked to the area, and as he got there, he saw a round metal object shoot up into the air. And when he went to the area where it came from, he noticed that the ground all around it was flattened, and it was a 30-foot circle. It was about two feet thick of the, I'm guessing where it pressed everything down. It was about two feet thick, and everything was in a clockwise swirl. All the crops were pressed down into a spiral, or in a circle, but the way that the stalks of plants were formed in a spiral. The locals around there called it the UFO nest.
Yes.
And so that itself, there's a whole story about the UFO nest.
It's where the UFOs go to make babies.
They nest just like a deer would. And then
or a bird.
Yeah, birds do the same.
Weird.
In 1974, scientists got together and decided to beam a message into space. And this was called...
That's always a good idea.
It's always a good idea to try to make contact.
Once Tim Allen did this.
Oh, what was that?
There's space documents. Galaxy Quest. It's movie.
Oh, yeah. I did see that.
The historical documents.
So in 1974, I'm pretty sure this is where they got the idea.
Probably.
1974, this was called the Arecibo message. It was called that because the name of the telescope that they were using was the Arecibo telescope. And they beamed a message into space, which was written in binary code, and it was pretty much talking about life and humanity here on Earth. And binary code, the reason why they did that was because math is a science, is like a universal language. Numbers, math,
Just a bunch of ones and zeros.
yeah. So that everyone is going to understand some kind of a math. So they did this in a binary code, and it was 1,679 digits that converted into an image. The top of the image, when it's translated, is the numbers 1 through 10, which is the key to unlock the rest of the message. Just below that, they had the what makes up our DNA, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. And then underneath that was the double helix structure. So it showed kind of, our double helix DNA. Then under that was a figure of a humanoid, just kind of a picture of a human along with the average height of a human and the population on Earth at the time, which was about 4 billion. Underneath that was just like a simple picture of our solar system. So it had the sun and each of our planets, and Earth being the one who sent the message. That position of all the solar system that was kind of moved up in the picture, so showing that was us that sent that. Then under that, they had a picture of the telescope that sent the signal, and they shot that into a cluster of stars. That was the Hercules section of space. I don't know. But anyways, they didn't expect to get a response for 50,000 years from now. So this is about 25,000 light years away. So they weren't expecting to hear anything for a while. And they eventually did in 2001. We'll get back to that. So after this happened, again, this happened in 1974. During the 80s and 90s, crop circles started becoming more detailed, more eccentric. They started having fractals. They started seeming like they were sending us messages in these. And they were noticing there was math equations that were inside of these crop circles, and they explained certain math equations, even pi. There was a crop circle that even showed pi.
I like pi.
Everyone loves pi. So the British government decided at this point, they started investigating it pretty heavily in the 80s, but they weren't telling anybody they were investigating this. Instead, they wanted to steer the attention away from this. There was already some people who were heavily involved into the research of UFOs, 20 years deep in the research of UFOs at this point. And so the government decides to get help to help steer the attention away from this. And who did they call? The good
Ghostbusters.
old CIA. The CIA. That at that point is when you start getting things that happened like Operation Blackbird, and the two guys who came out and said that they were the ones creating all the crop circles. So at this point, let's go to 1990, Operation Blackbird. This was a government operation that they took these, it was a 3-week surveillance operation where they were going to capture a crop circle being filmed in real time. So they took these prominent researchers, Colin Andrews and Pat Delgado. They've been researching UFO crop circles for 2 decades at this point. They even got this sponsored by the BBC and Japanese public television. The land that they were going to be doing this on was owned by the Ministry of Defense. The British Ministry of Defense owned the land that they were on. There was an agreement made that in order to use this land, and they told these researchers that they were going to do it on this land because it was going to be unobstructed by the public, because it's private, owned by them, that they were going to have the military there, they're going to have all this government there, but they had to listen and do what they said. And they agreed that they would do what they said and listen to all this stuff. So on night 2, this was, again, going to be a 3-week surveillance thing. And every day he was going to come on and talk about what had gone on that day, if anything weird had happened. And on the second night, crop circles appeared. And they were asleep when it happened. And they were woken by the military, told what was done, and was told, this is the report. This is everything that was done. Go get on TV and report it. So what they were told to say on TV, they said what was said to them. And it was still dark. They hadn't even seen it for themselves yet. The sun came out, and it was obvious it was man-made. It was a complete prank. It was a joke. And at this point, with them reporting this big event, that this thing happened, blah, 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 as soon as the sun comes out and they see that it was fake, it completely discredited these guys. Like, it made them look like laughing stocks. They were jokes. Like, your whole research is completely bullshit. Like, everything you've done for the last 20 years is shit. And look at you looking like a fool on TV now. And he was just like pissed. And he realized, that they were made to look like that from the military purposely. They were trying to discredit him. And, come to find out, the military at that time that was going on, they had something going on somewhere else. They were doing another secret surveillance to do the exact same thing that they were trying to do over here at this other location called Silbury Hill. Silbury Hill is another popular location similar to where it's on a ley line, and there seems to be a lot of UFO activity in that area. So the government was actually looking in that area, surveillancing UFO activity and crop circles there. And in the meantime, this Project Blackbird was set up as a route to just discredit these guys and make it look like crop circles are full of shit. The next thing that happened the year after that was in 1991, these two men in their 60s, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, confessed to being the ones doing all of the crop circles in the area starting back in 1978.
Or 1975, or possibly 1976. They couldn't remember as the years went on.
Right. Their stories kept changing.
Their details were a little shaky. What
they said they would do to create these is they would use these 4-foot planks with ropes on them hanging, so they can use them as reins and press and step on the planks and press the weeds down. And then they would hang a wire from their hat brim and make a little circle out of it, and they'd look through that circle and follow that circle, and that's how they'd make their straight lines. But when they were asked to recreate these things that they were saying they made, the straight lines were never straight. The circles were never the same size. They couldn't get them to be the same size. They kept going either way too big or their lines were way too crooked to where they would just kind of give up trying at some points.
Yeah, the one guy made the circle, his first circle, double the size it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And he got confused and just kind of gave up and walked away.
And then when asked about these other ones that were done, because they would, there was the tractor lines that they could follow, the tractor lines in order to get to certain areas to make crop circles. Well, there were certain crop circles that were done in areas where there were no footprints and there were no tractor lines that ran through these circles. And how did you get into those areas and make these without making any footprints?
Well, of course, they were ex-Olympians, apparently, because they carried their planks and their all their equipment and shit, and they pole vaulted.
They pole vaulted in
and made their crop circles and pole vaulted their asses back out.
In their 60s, no less.
In their 60s. And somehow when they pole vaulted, the pole came with them?
Yeah.
Or did they bring a separate pole to pole vault in and then a different one to pole vault out? Because last time I checked, the poles kind of stay where they're at.
Yeah.
You plant it in the ground, you go flying,
and the
pole falls.
Yeah, the pole falls the other way. So how are you going to get back?
So you're pole vaulting in with a second pole?
So you have to be. You have to be.
And all of your crop circle making equipment.
It's the only way.
It's amazing.
And then on top of that, there were stories where there were reports of these strange jelly substance left behind at crop circles. And when asked about that,
it was space poop.
Not just plain.
It was
Boeing bombs.
It was Boeing bombs. Yes, yeah, airplane poop, frozen airplane poop,
getting dropped out of the airplanes and hitting him. And he said he was hit by one of these one time and left him bloodied. And he walked to his car covered in a jelly goo, which was airplane poo.
Yeah,
which airplanes don't do that. Airplanes don't drop poop out of their.
That's illegal.
So this is what he said. And then there was other times where there's these weird magnetized meteorite metals that are left behind at some of these. And when asked about that, I don't think they responded to that, but what they started doing when they were making these bullshit crop circles was they were leaving lead and ore and just metal shavings everywhere. So and then they were wrapping their planks in wires. And
don't get us wrong, these two guys were making
crop circles.
They were making actual counterfeit crop circles, I guess. But when the stuff started coming out in the media about things happening at legitimate crop circles, these guys started adding that shit to their crop circles.
Yes. And so...
Literally.
So this was making the public go, oh my God, all these times that we were excited about all of these crop circles, it was all bullshit. Look at the stories on the news. And these news stories were made to be like, everything you guys thought about crop circles were bullshit, and this is why. And this is what they were fed. This is what the public was fed, this bullshit.
I remember hearing about this when I was a kid.
Me too. And I was still intrigued by crop circles, no less, because I didn't believe... There was just some things about the crop circles that were just too telling that they couldn't be man-made. So after these two events happened, which were back to back, which were happening as crop circles were getting more investigated, were getting more elaborate and eccentric in their designs. Boom! All of a sudden, this stuff hits, and then one of those out of those two researchers who got made fun of on the Operation Blackbird. One of them, he ended up retiring. The Pat Delgado, he ends up retiring. He's done with it because of how he was treated in that situation, and with all the time he spent and all the research he's done just for the government to treat them like that and make them look like a joke, he ends up getting out of it altogether. Colin Andrews stays into it. He's still dedicated to it, but after that had happened, he starts realizing he's being wiretapped, he's getting bugged, he's being followed at some points. He started getting approached by someone who claimed to have seen a crop circle and a UFO. He started trying to befriend him and talk to him about UFOs and stuff and the such and crop circles. One day he just kind of shows up at his house, knocks on his door, and then they go for a walk and they start talking about UFOs and crop circles. And Colin starts getting annoyed with this guy at a certain point because the guy kept egging him about if the Russians are involved. He keeps asking him if the Russians are involved, and he has no idea, and so it's just kind of bothering him. And this guy ends up telling Colin, "You're one of us now." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And the guy ends up going, "CIA." And he's like, "What are you fucking talking about?" And then this guy ends up telling him, I can give you a large sum of money in a Swiss bank account set aside for you. All you have to do is publicly say that crop circles are a hoax. And I can make you the top researcher in the world on crop circles. We'll totally finance everything for you. And if you do come across real crop circles, you pass it on to this person. This is their number, and they'll take care of it. You just act like you didn't find it and keep finding bullshit crop circles. He didn't want to agree to that. So this guy starts harassing him. He starts calling him aggressively. He starts almost threatening him. So what he does is he calls the British Ministry of Defense, because they live in London, and they end up telling him that it's out of their jurisdiction and there's nothing they can do about it, which is really weird because that's kind of their job, especially if it's kind of getting threatening. Well, after a little while, he ends up moving to the U.S. And soon after he moves here to the U.S., he gets introduced to this lady named Rosemary Ellen Guiley. And the person who introduces him to her is this Pentagon analyst.
I almost met her. There was a convention that a friend of ours was doing back in 2017 or 2018, somewhere in there. Rosemary was on the list of celebrities that was supposed to be here, and I think she got sick and couldn't make it.
Well,
we both came really close to actually.
That would have been really strange after finding out more about this. So who she was, she had written 49 books at this time. She's been on Coast to Coast Radio multiple times. She even had her own paranormal radio show at the time as well. Colin said that she went to every extreme possible to get him to co-author a book with her. But the caveat to that would be it would have to be in his office, which would give her full access to everything he has, all the files he has. And he kept saying no, but she was very persistent, and it was very strange to him why she was acting the way she was. He later thought back on this and was 100% positive now that she was a CIA asset, where she was being used to use her influence to do what she was doing, but to be the top one at what she was doing. But anytime she came across things at a certain point that they didn't want her to say. They gave her other things to say about it to disinform the public. He was 100% sure of that. And I'm talking about her in past tense. The reason why is that she died in 2019 at 69 years old. And just like a lot of other CIA assets, very strange cause of death.
Aliens, man.
Aliens did it. Soon after, in the early 90s, also, there was a circlemakersgroup.org, which was led by this guy named John Lundberg. And it's believed that this was all created, that these guys, this was a group of guys who made these elaborate crop circles, and they travel all over the world making these crop circles. Because the other thing was, these two old guys who were making, who were confessing to all this, I mean, that only explains that little section of England. There were crop circles being talked about all over the world at this point. In multiple countries, all the different continents, there were crop circles and reports of. And so here goes this circlemakersgroup.org. And their whole thing is they go around the world making crop circles, elaborate crop circles. And the founder of this group, he has an interesting background. So he graduated from a school, and he was looked into because of just the way this was. It was just seems like there was a lot of weird disinformation on this page, and there was kind of steering you in weird directions. Well, when they looked into the guy who made this, he graduated from the Slade School of Fine Arts, which is actually right next door to the MI5 headquarters. And it was well known that the MI5 recruited young men graduating college. And the school, there was like a yard that separated the MI5 and the school, and they shared that yard. And it's very possible this kid graduated from that school, was recruited by MI5 because he started this group within just a couple years of graduating from that school. It just seems weird that he would do that. They also don't share where they receive their funds from. They say they're funded by somebody, and they don't want to give up who it is. But it's also very strange that somebody would fund this, because crop circles, when they're trespassing onto somebody's property, they're destroying their property, and then they're taking credit for it. Nobody in their right mind would allow that to happen and not sue them and get some kind of compensation for ruining their crops.
Bill Gates.
So it seems very strange that they would have somebody funding that, supporting that, and they're not making any money for it off of it. It just doesn't make any sense. So this was very strange about the CIA covering all these things up. There was just too much going on here, and they were just kind of going way far trying to keep the public disinformed. But people kept finding weird shit in the sky, and they kept seeing crop circles. And then in 1996, there was actually somebody who filmed and recorded a crop circle happening. And if you didn't see this video, but you got to watch this video. You can look it up afterwards. This guy named John Whaley, he was camping on a hill in Wiltshire. It was called Oliver's Castle. And in England, there's times of the year where they do have a lot of light, and they only get dark for maybe 3 or 4 hours a night. And so this was about 3 a.m., and you can still see, it's still kind of like duskish. You can still see a lot of things where he's noticing these lights, and it's capturing his attention. So he pulls out his video camera, and he starts recording these several lights that are just glowing and flying over this crop field. And then out of nowhere, you just see this impression happen on the crops. It's a fucking crop circle impression happening as these things are flying around. It just, like, it's a normal crop, and all of a sudden it gets impressed, and there's a crop circle there. There's nothing landing on top of it. You just see it get pressed into the crop. It is pretty fucking cool. I gotta show that to you.
It was Valak.
Yeah, it was that damn nun.
It was Valak and Pizzozo. That's the one from Exorcist.
It was Pizzozo.
Pizzozo and Valak, they got together and they started pushing grass into the ground.
Well, so that was in 1996.
They were around then.
And then in 2001, Chilbolton Radio Telescope in Hampshire, UK, the crop circle response to remember that one, the binary code that was sent into space in 1974?
Yeah.
Well, in 2001, something happened. First was this, where they got this weird crop circle that appeared right next to this radio telescope. And they couldn't make it out what it was because it wasn't your normal circles and stars or weird shapes. It just didn't make any sense. It was just pressed in weird places and not in others. And until somebody saw it from up above in the sky, they realized it was a picture of a face. But it wasn't a human face. It was like the big head, big eyes face.
Aliens, man.
Aliens, man. And then 3 days later, next to that, was the answer to the Arecibo message. It was a binary code impression into the crops, and it was the picture. It wasn't just the binary code, it was the actual picture done up in binary code. And it was pretty badass. And this thing also had the 1 through 10 showing that they were responding in the same code. And their DNA structure, just like how we put our DNA structure with carbon on top being carbon the main source, their DNA structure shows silicon being their main structure of life. Where ours is carbon, theirs is silicon. Their DNA helix has a third string, where ours only has the double helix. They have a third. The picture of their race shows a shorter humanoid with the average height of being 4 feet tall and a population of 21 billion. And then their picture of their solar system, so where we had a sun and then a picture of a dot for each planet with ours being raised, they had their solar system with their sun and their planets, and they had 3 of theirs raised, which shows that they occupy 3 planets in their solar system. And then the telescopes, where we showed a picture of what our telescope looked like that sent the message. Theirs was a picture and was this design. It showed something similar. It looks like they understood it, and they showed this design of what sent their message. And when looking at the picture and binary code of the picture that they sent of what sent their image, it looks just very, very similar to a crop circle that was left a year prior. And that was a very eccentric, very cool looking crop circle. And yeah, that picture looked just like that crop circle, and it was sent a year before. So it looks like they understood the code, and they sent a reply back, which is pretty damn cool. I'd never heard of this before. I've never heard of the Arecibo message and the Arecibo answer. That was pretty badass. And then a year after that, another picture appeared in the field that you had to see from space, and it was another face of a alien humanoid picture, like with the big head, big eyes. And then this one had binary code as well etched into the crop circle. And when they put this binary code into a descrambler or whatever to unscramble the message, they found that it was actually done in English. The binary code was English. They understood and they sent it in English. That's pretty cool. So this is what the message said in that binary code. Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broke promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe. There is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing. What do you think about that?
They're onto us. That's what the world leaders.
But it seems like
say.
once the CIA and everything seemed to have got the attention off crop circles and made it seem like it was a bunch of bullshit, a lot of it did die down in the 90s. I remember crop circles being crazy big, and then it started kind of dying down in the 90s. And the CIA did do a good job at getting a lot of people to think they're bullshit, because that's kind of what happened. But there is a way to spot fake crop circles and real crop circles. And the people doing the research on this will admit that almost all crop circles are man-made. They're almost all bullshit. But there are some that are hard to fake. And the way that you're able to tell, so one, wood planks, when they're smashing down crops, what are they doing to the plants? They're smashing them, they're breaking them, they're bending them, they're all getting damaged. There's damage to it, and they're messy. The real crop circles, the stalks, they're not broke, they're not bent, they're kind of laying gently, sometimes woven into each other, and they seem to be going in a spiral, but they're not pressed hard and to where the plants are broke. And like the other thing is what they can tell in wheat, especially wheat, because the kernels in wheat, they're heavy and it causes the stalks at the top to bend down. And the plant itself starts to harden, and at that point the tops are bent. You try to pick them up, they're too heavy, they just fall down and they stay bent like that. In a crop circle, when it's real, those plants, those stalks are laying down, and the stalks, the tips of them where all the kernels are, they're completely straight out. They're flat and straight out. There's no bend in it at all. And you can't even get it to bend anymore. They're like that. The other thing about wheat, what wheat has, is they have nodules in the stalk. Kind of like how bamboo has those nodules, you can imagine. So those nodules, they have water in them. And what happens when you microwave water, and what causes microwave is radiation. So what happens to these stalks in those nodes, they burst because the water inside there is getting microwaved, causing those nodes to burst. That doesn't happen with wood planks. Wood planks doesn't cause radiation and microwave. They just break shit. These stalks are not getting broken at all.
Radioactive wood planks.
You damn right. So it's known that that's what's happening there. There's also high radiation in those real crop circles. They're not finding radiation in man-made crop circles. They are finding radiation in real crop circles, to the point where the radiation is high enough. They've even had somebody with a thyroid cancer sit in the field for hours. And then
like 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours sitting in the field with high radiation. With a doctor.
And they noticed that the tumor or the thyroid had reduced in size by like 40% in 2 hours. Exactly.
Also, with the fields, they've found that because also when you damage a field like that with planks of wood, it's going to be damaged and broken, and all those are going to die. In a real crop circle, it doesn't die. They actually grow, and they actually become a lot stronger plants. They find that because of the radiation, those seeds end up having higher protein and are bigger and give you more nutrients, but also because of, radiation and stuff. But, those people way back in the 9th century, they knew that. They knew about that all the way back then.
I love me some radiation.
Which is, it's pretty crazy that, just how that happens. But, so yes, they found that, crop circles are 95% bullshit. But the ones that are, do have some significance to them, they can't explain it. And some of the weird designs that they've been putting in, like I mentioned earlier, are like math equations and things like that. But some of it could also be, they might be sending us messages on, how to explain anti-gravity or, propulsion or, light speed or certain like some of the things could be frequencies. They've actually found that, when you put like glitter or sand on something and put a subwoofer underneath it and play a certain frequency, it's going to create a certain design. They've kind of found those designs in some crop circles. So they're wondering, are frequencies, an answer to some of this? There was one person was actually taking these weird shaped crop circles and then flipping them and making them 3D, and was trying to make blueprints out of it and designing. Maybe they were sending us blueprints. So he got a whole team to actually start making a documentary on this. So there's a documentary on this, and him trying to do this with crop circles and seeing if those fit together as some kind of a blueprint for space travel.
And then the Vulcans will find us. And they'll make first contact.
They ran out of funding. And back to those two guys, the two elderly men who were claiming to be the ones doing all these crop circles. Well, come to find out, the CIA did not pay them what they were owed, because they ended up suing to get the rest of the money they were owed. So they most likely were not CIA assets per se, but they were paid by the CIA to come up with a story and tell this story to the public, to get the public thinking another thing. So they got paid up front a certain amount, and we're supposed to get paid the second half at a certain point never got that pay. They tried suing to get that money back. I don't know if they were successful or not.
I don't think they were.
But they did sue, and so that just comes to prove that, yes, the CIA was involved with them trying to admit to them being the ones doing all the crop circles. So when people say, they're bullshit, people already admitted to it, that they were the ones that did it. Did those guys do some crop circles? Yes, they sure as shit did. Did they go around the world to do it? No, they did not. Did they do a good job at making circles? Hell no, they didn't. They sucked at making crop circles.
It's because they hurt themselves pole vaulting.
They had to have.
Yeah.
But at this point now, I think a lot of people know already. I mean, the government's already come out and admitted that UFOs are real. Aliens are real. So for them to try to discredit crop circles anymore, I don't think they do that.
Have they, though? That's all these supposed whistleblowers.
Well,
not the actual
if you
government
think about
itself.
Nobody's making these crop circles anymore.
Right.
There's nobody's reporting crop, and when there is, I think it's more significant now because everyone kind of gave up on this.
Right. I'm responding to the government has come out and said aliens are real. And it's not been exactly the government. It's like former government employees.
Well, whistleblowers and everything. But
right.
That
is not an official statement from the government.
Okay, but they're also not saying anything to say that what they said is a lie. These are top officials being under oath with the chance of going to prison if they're lying. And they are saying what they're saying with the chance of prison hanging over their head, and they're saying that publicly.
Misdirection. Get people focused on something else so you can do something else over here.
Which is not a surprise.
It's a great illusionist tactic.
So another funny thing is the guy who created that cropcirclemakers.org, his whole situation, he seemed to have been funded by the government, and on top of that, everything about that whole site seemed to just like disappear, and all of a sudden he comes back in the spotlight as a person who made a movie about, what was that guy's name again? You said we talked about him before, who was a Dwight.
No, Richard Dalty.
Yeah, that guy.
Richard Dalty or whatever his name
Yes, him. So he, the John Lundgren, the guy who made that circlemakers.org, all of a sudden he comes back and had made a movie about. It was about that guy and what his job was in the CIA, which was to misinform the public.
Richard Doty.
Yeah. So this guy makes a whole movie about Richard Doty, and everything about him was about CIA cover-ups and stuff like that, and which is very strange that this guy would be wanting to make some kind of movie like that when he's, over here trying to misinform and disappears for a while, then all of a sudden, boom, he comes out with this movie. I think his job was done at that point. I think he was done as a CIA operative or an asset, and he probably got let go without getting compensated. So now he's probably whistleblowing as well right now. So the CIA cover-up, it's been exposed. It's pretty crazy that they were doing that and going to those lengths to try to keep this information from the public. Like the British government had a lot of like they were hiding a lot for a reason, but don't know why that they didn't want the public to know. Very strange.
Because it's not real, man.
You think it's not real?
You talk about the whistleblowers and how they go under oath saying that they're telling the truth because they would go to jail if they weren't. My train of thought here is like I said, misdirection. You want to keep people focused on something else so you can do some other shit behind the curtains, right? So why not, if these guys were really giving out government secrets, do you think they would let them go all over the country doing all of these interviews? Or do you think they would actually just arrest them?
Well, there's a lot of people that
secrets?
Were killed and disappeared, died in strange ways, that have anything to do with the CIA and stuff like that. Some that don't, some that do.
Right. So I think that maybe they were even given the information. The government's like, here, go tell people this.
Well, that's exactly what they were trying to get that Colin Andrews to do.
All these.
They were trying to recruit him.
And not everybody's swayed by money. So this most recent guy from last year, the year before, that went on Joe Rogan and all these other shows, Who's to say that the government wasn't paying him to go and feed everybody this stuff?
Well, I'm pretty sure that they're okay with certain things getting leaked at this point. With certain things
Well,
already
that's what I
coming
just
out.
said. They're like, here's this information. Go tell people this.
Yeah, and I'm sure that a lot of that's true.
While
though.
we go do this other shit behind the scenes.
Right. I guarantee a lot of that's already. There's a lot of that's true, and they're okay with some of that coming out, and they probably give them what they can and what they can't say.
The government, the ultimate illusionists.
Yeah, that's exactly what they are. But yeah, I definitely think that crop circles were a thing. Not all of them. Hell no. A lot of them were bullshit. Like I was saying, but there are some that are unexplainable with certain qualities to them, certain traits that are unexplainable.
They have the technology.
Technology that we don't have yet.
No, the government has it.
Oh yeah.
In Area 51, they've studied this already. We've been over this.
Oh, the other thing about those, whenever there are reports there, so there's been more reports of crop circles being captured as they're happening, and whenever people are seeing that, they're usually accompanied with military helicopters coming out and chasing after these light orbs.
Yeah, demons.
But so there are people who have witnessed, a lot of people who have witnessed these light orbs flying around these crop circles that are forming and then getting chased by helicopters.
I think that there's a lot of stuff that we can't explain, and people like to fantasize about things, and they make up stories.
So after this,
They tried
watch
to
the video of that one in
to-
1996.
They
We'll
tried
pull that
to
up.
explain and rationalize the things that they saw.
Well,
And
that's why they got
what's
the
more fun-
devil, that mode.
What's more fun and what's going to get more attention for your videos on the YouTube or the internet or the news or wherever you're submitting it to than conspiracy theories? Who doesn't love a great conspiracy theory?
So
I know Mel Gibson loves them.
Do you think that crop circles are a conspiracy theory?
100%.
Myself, I think that they are giving us some type of clues to certain things. I think they are coming from either from another planet or from within Hollow Earth.
Okay.
But I think these are, and I used to think that those were like landing marks. I thought those were like when a spacecraft landed. I thought those were left behind because it landed.
Yeah, that would make sense. I take it back. I'd say 90% conspiracy theory, 10% real.
Yeah. And the one, that's what I used to think, but until I saw that video where these light orbs were floating above this field, and then the impression got left behind. Nothing landed there, but it was a perfect impression left behind, and then they were gone.
They like to make a good first impression.
But it does make me wonder, because of the mathematical equations that they put in some of these, if a lot of these things are some type of clues to propulsion, to anti-gravity, and they're giving us these clues. We just don't understand them yet. And
I think we as the people don't understand them.
Right,
I think the government
the humans.
does. No, I think the government understands them. I'm not saying humans in general. I think I've had conversations with people before that I don't think they give the human race enough credit for the intelligence or the technology that we've come up with. Like, I had this argument with somebody at work once where they claimed that there was no way that we would have cell phones or some of the technology we have today without alien interference.
No,
Without
we'd have cell
giving
phones.
giving us the technology that we have today to make some of the stuff that we make. And I think people, I mean, look at the pyramids, for example. People claim that there's no way that the Egyptians could have built those without the help of aliens or extraterrestrials.
Anunnaki.
And what's the Anunnaki?
We can get into that another day.
But I mean, science has shown that the pyramids were first built over a period of like 20 years, and they did it in the off season. So they would, when the Nile River would flood, they would do their farming and whatnot when they had water. And then when it would recede, that's when they worked on the pyramid. And they didn't use just slaves. They used, like, everybody worked on them.
The only problem is moving the stones to build the pyramids that many miles, over 200 miles. Like, that's just a lot of work.
That's Stonehenge. The pyramids weren't 200 miles, I don't believe.
No, where they got the stones from?
That was Stonehenge.
I believe that was the
I think the pyramids were more
as well.
local.
No, that was further away.
But, I mean, you can throw a bunch of logs on the ground and roll them across it.
That's a lot of logs.
Science is proven.
A lot of logs.
It is a lot of logs. You grab the bones from the back and you run them to the front. You only need like 12. I don't know. But they have like done studies and shown that, like, Yeah, the pyramids were built by people. There are some things like Stonehenge. Stonehenge, that's the one I'm kind of like, I don't know how they did that shit, because how do you stand 2 pillars vertical and then put a big giant another one on top of them vertically?
So let's talk about this crop circle called the Stonehenge Surprise.
Okay, surprise me.
Stonehenge is under surveillance 24/7.
Okay.
And remember when I told you there's those times a year where they only get about like 4 hours of darkness?
Yeah.
On one of those nights, there was a crop circle that appeared right next to Stonehenge. And under surveillance, nothing captured that happening. No one captured anybody rushing out in this field and creating this huge crop circle that was done. And it was big with about, I can't remember, 400 or something circles that were done in this. And it was done within those 4 hours of darkness. And being under surveillance, it captured no people showing up to do this. There would have to be an army of people in order to make that many circles in that amount of time. There would have to be tons of people there to do this. Not only that, but there would be a huge mess left behind by that many people. There would be muddy prints. There was raining that night as well. So there would be mud prints everywhere in order for that to happen. And within those 4 hours of darkness, no surveillance captured any people coming in and out, doing anything, and all of a sudden, boom, there was a giant crop circle that left behind, and that was called the Stonehenge Surprise.
500 miles, actually.
500 miles is how long they had to travel to make the pyramids. Yeah.
Yep,
Imagine doing that. Imagine doing that.
Over the course of 20 years.
Yeah. No, thank you. No,
I'm good.
So, but yeah, that was the Stonehenge Surprise.
Aliens, man.
The Stonehenge Surprise is actually a very, very wild crop circle
Have you seen
to happen.
Have you seen the footage?
I saw the footage. Yes, I've seen the crop circle that was made, and I saw the footage from 1996 where that guy captured the crop circle being formed in front. And it's on footage. We will watch it after this. It's pretty damn cool. But anyways, yeah. To me, I think crop circles
10% real.
10% real, 90% bullshit. Done in a way, and then it all happened. It seemed all that bullshit, 90% crop circles, all happened between, I would say, 85 and late 90s. After that, you stopped kind of hearing about it.
Right, because the government doesn't want you.
They did their job. They did their job. They got everybody forgetting about it. Nobody was making bullshit crop circles anymore.
Now we just have random monoliths appearing.
Yeah.
We did all that.
But then in 2001, boom, we got that Arecibo answer. That in itself is pretty damn cool. I'll show you what that looked like too. You got to see pictures of that. But anything else?
No.
All right, we good on crop circles for today?
Sure.
Did you guys learn anything?
I was good on crop circles 54 minutes ago.
Well, all right. I think we can call that an episode.
Okay, then. So check out our social medias, evp.pod at Instagram and Facebook. We post stuff.
If you guys have any crop circle stories or UFO stories or ghost stories, please feel free to share. Send us an email, evp.pod
at gmail.com. I wasn't sure if you remembered.
I almost forgot it.
I was just trying to help you out.
That was your part.
evp.pod at gmail.com. After you check that out and send us your stories, go to our affiliate link to ghoststop.com, buy some ghost hunting gear, and go ghost hunting with us, with other people. We don't care. Go ghost hunting. It's fun.
All right, guys. Go see. Don't play that.
Peace out, butterflies.
This is the EVP Podcast.